After years of being teamed about this new mythical brand making these extremely high-end e-mountain bikes, finally Forrestal has arrived in Australia. We've got a bike here in the flesh. This is the Forrestal Sirion E. It is an absolutely mind-blowing machine. It is opulent, it's decadent, and it's extremely high-end in every sense of the word. Blake's been riding it for a couple of weeks now, so we're going to unpack some of the vast amount of detail that this bike kind of has and offers and what sets it apart. So Blake, first up mate, does this bike live up to the hype of being teased all those years?
Absolutely. So yeah, as JT said, I've been noticing things pop up about this bike for years and years now. Obviously they've got Cedric Gracia involved with testing and development, all that sort of thing. If you grew up riding or were around in the 2000s, you know that guy's all over it. He was always very pedantic with his bike setup. So he was obviously a good guy to go to, being a fellow Andorran, to start to develop this bike from the ground up with them. They've done a really amazing job for this to be their first bike that they've released to market. Obviously it's taken them quite a while, they've spent their time, but they've just absolutely nailed it. Everything from the integration with the computer system, the Bafang motor, the thing weighs absolutely nothing. They've just absolutely nailed it from every aspect.
I guess Blake, when we got the spec sheet on this bike and we were told, okay, it's finally going to arrive, I looked at the geo, I looked at what it comes with, the spec, and then I saw the amount of travel it's got and the motor size and the battery, and then the weight, 17.4 kilos with kind of heavyish tires really. Absolutely phenomenal, 170 mil of travel at both ends. This thing is an e-enduro bike, and then it's got this crazy linkage. This thing is like literally a supercar or a hypercar performance with a first crack right out of the gates. How have they pulled that off?
Exactly, so they've just obviously got some really switched on engineers, and their whole business philosophy is high end. Obviously you are paying a pretty penny for that, but what you're getting is actually pretty good value for money. You're basically getting two bikes in one. Yes, it does obviously have a mid-power motor. It's got a 320 watt-hour battery, so you can still rely on it for a whole ride, but I've ridden this thing 20, 30K rides with the thing off, and there's no restriction from the motor. There's very little resistance. It is dead quiet as well, like not only the motor and the drivetrain, but the bike itself through the suspension linkage is dead quiet. I've had quite a few comments of people as I ride past or riding with them, like, man, how's that thing so quiet? Yes, it's a new bike, everything's nice and snug, but as the bike wears in a bit as well, like you do expect a little bit of chain noise here and there, but there's absolutely nothing. That's
one thing we noticed when we were watching you ride down before. The bike is dead silent. It really looks like it clings to the trail. Now I'm sure a lot of that comes down to this linkage that they've designed. It's quite unique. Now it's essentially a single pivot, but it does have the tailored kinesthetics of a linkage there. So tell us a bit about that and how it works and how it works in reality.
Yeah, so it is essentially a linkage driven single pivot. Obviously we've got like the motorbike style chainstay, we've got the one swing arm, which is very eye-catching, but it's also very functional. With the way that I ride, I like to throw the bike around a lot and hit the corners very hard. So I notice straight away if the back end has a bit more flex or a bit less flex than other things. This thing is super stiff side to side, but it doesn't really give you a lot of force feedback through the chattery sections. Like it's not like it's rough ride because the suspension is so active. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds there. You're not really compromising from either end.
And 170 mil of travel, like a bike with that much travel, you expect it to be sort of upwards of 20 kilos in weight just because of everything it's got to sort of sacrifice to have that much plushness and that much travel. But this thing manages to do it on a diet.
Exactly, yeah. Like, and again, motor and battery aside, like the actual construction of the frame is incredibly high end, incredibly lightweight. I'm not sure, what type of, aerospace type of carbon fiber we might have in there or something like that, like some crazy materials. But I believe that the weight of the frame set itself without the motor and the battery was around 2.4 kilos, something like that.
That's ridiculous.
For a 170 mil travel bike that is this stiff and refined, it is absolutely crazy.
This bike is in a class of its own, just on that alone. Now, I've got to ask you, obviously we'll get onto the motor, but I've got to ask you, this thing's pretty much got a computer built in to the top tube. Like, it's crystal clear, it's got crazy amounts of data. Tell us a bit about how you can sync it to your phone and like watch the live view mapping. Like, what the hell is going on with this thing?
Yeah, so basically you've got an Android phone in your top tube. It doesn't have a SIM card, so you got to hook it up through your hotspot and that type of thing, which is really quite simple. Like, jump on their website, they've got a video that puts it all together. With your touchscreen, You've got live mapping, so you can hook it up through your Strava, all that type of thing. You've got a dashboard that's going to show you, your general e-bike sort of stuff, your modes, your battery percentage, speed, distance. Swipe across and you've got a whole bunch of settings that you can jump in there. Obviously you've got software updates. You can hook it up with your heart rate monitors, screen. You can preload rides in there, all that type of stuff at the touch of your fingertips on your top tube. This isn't going to suit everybody, to be honest. Like, there is some people out there that think, all I want to see is my battery indicator and that's it, and what ride mode I'm in. But there's going to be some people that really benefit from, having the sort of, and I really liked it, the sort of geeky, nerdy sort of bit behind it, the tech. Like, where's it gonna end if we're already here in 2022? Imagine what the next couple of years is gonna be like.
It's like the luxury of a Mercedes AMG or something like that. Like, it's a real,
Exactly.
Obviously no compromise, no expense spared approach. Now, tell us a bit about the motor. I hadn't heard of Bafang before. However, it turns out they're probably one of the biggest e-bike motor producers on the planet. Now, I know that Forrestal teamed up with them, and that's one of the reasons this bike was delayed in development for about a year, is because they really fine-tuned the power unit on this thing. What's the power like? And I think it's got 60 Newton meters. Is that just enough pepper to kind of get you up and over the hills? And tell us a bit about some of the power settings.
Exactly, yeah. So basically, I've already ridden a couple of these sort of intermediate power e-bikes, as well as, the full fat ones. The way that the Bafang have actually sort of designed this motor, it feels like it's got a bit more power than it actually does. So it's probably more comparable to almost up near your Shimano EP8 power. That's how it feels on the trail. But you do have to be a bit more selective with your gearing on climbing and that sort of thing to really get the most out of it, sort of keep a bit more cadence compared to your normal e-bikes where you just, whatever gear, you just throw the pedals down and you'll get up anything. You do have to be a little bit more selective with your gearing choice, but it's really linear in the way that it approaches its power curve. It's not like it ramps up really quick, like you know exactly where you're gonna be. And that's through all the power modes as well. So you've got four ride modes, as well as, you can turn it off and ride it happily like a normal bike. But between those 4 ride modes, like it's a very nice increments up in your power.
Wicked. Mate, just tell us, just to sort of wrap this up now, you've spent a couple of weeks on it, you've had a couple of big rides. How does it handle? Tell us a bit about, obviously the lightweight would probably be one of the characteristics I'd be most curious to hear about as well. But yeah, as an all-around bike, and what kind of ride is going to get the most out of it?
Absolutely. So e-bike aside, even if you're just riding this thing off all the time, it handles so damn well. I've ridden some super rough trails, like we're locally known to have some of the rockiest trails around, and this thing just absolutely plows. It just loves to go nuts. High speed sections, like the geometry is nothing crazy. It's not like it's the longest or the slackest bike out there, but in that respect, like, it also climbs really well. It handles more technical features and sort of, your playful fiddly bits really well. But man, this thing's an absolute bruiser on the way back down the hill. Like, you just absolutely haul on this bike. Add into that the convenience of being able to, get up the hill or get out for, an hour after work, whatever, and cover 20 Ks instead of 5. It's ticking all the boxes for me.
Well, there you have it. A new player has entered the e-bike world, Forrestal, essentially the Gucci high-end luxury e-bike brand. The bike certainly lives up to the hype. We're certainly keen to spend a bit more time on it, digging our teeth into it even further. To be honest, it's a little bit unbelievable just how the overall package and how well it rides. So yeah, keen to spend some more time, come back at you with a more in-depth review later on down the track. So keep an eye on our channel, and obviously keep an eye on pushies.com.au where you'll find everything Forrestal. Get on there, check out the entire range, and these things are in stock in Australia right now.